We live in turbulent times, obviously. And it's also clear that this has implications for the political priorities, the political agenda. I think most people in this room are probably a little bit frustrated that the focus on fighting climate change and the green transition is not as high as it was, say, 5 years ago. Certainly me, personally, I entered politics more than 25 years ago because of the green agenda, at a time where not a lot of people spoke about that either, but the last 10, 15 years, fortunately, in Europe, that has changed, and we have adopted a lot of very, very ambitious legislation. But it is also clear that looking at the result of the European election, looking at the opposition that the Green Deal is getting from some parts of Europe, looking at how high on the political agenda in our media, things have changed. So in a way, I could stop the speech here and we would have a very bleak vision, and probably that wouldn't leave you in such a positive mood. But, friends, the good news is I'm not actually a pessimist at all. Not at all. Because, counterintuitively, the fact that the discussion about which technologies to drive our societies, which energies to drive our societies, is no longer primarily about climate change, I will argue is actually a good thing. Not because climate change is less important than it was before. Actually, it's more important than it was before. Every year is the hottest year ever recorded. Next year will be even hotter. We see the catastrophic consequences of climate change, even in Europe, every year. But the fact that we don't need to start every discussion with, is climate change real? How important is it? What are we willing to do? What are the proportionalities in what we invest vis-a-vis the effects of climate change? The fact that we don't need to start every discussion with that is actually an advantage. Because the fortunate thing is that all of the things we need to do to fight climate change are also all of the things we need to do to fight the other big challenges that we face. The ones that are, in fact, number one on the political agenda. And I am, of course, referring to security and competitiveness. So, competitiveness. You know, in the US, many places actually on the planet, when you assume a political office, you swear on the Bible. In the Bellarmont, we swear on the Draghi report. Draghi mentions energy more than 700 times in his report. And this is for a good reason. Energy prices in Europe are too high. Energy drives our industries. Energy is essential for our competitiveness. And if we don't bring down those prices, our prosperity will be hurt. And it is being hurt. Security. Well, we are dependent on fossil fuels. We import for more than 400 billion every year. Right now, it's very obvious because everybody can see that we are even still in a dependency to our enemy. This was, of course, much worse 3 years ago when 3 years and 7 months ago, when the full-scale invasion started. I was Minister of Energy in Denmark at that time, and I remember we spent the first days and weeks making emergency plans for what we would do if Putin turned off the taps. He could have ruined the European economy like this. We had to make lists of companies that we would force to close down if that happened. That didn't happen, and instead we made our own strategy to get rid of the dependency, and that has to some extent worked. We've gone from 45% of our gas being Russian to 13%, from 27% of our oil to 3%, and from 50% of our coal to 0%. So we have moved in the right direction. primarily because we've been able to deploy other technologies. But we're still buying Russian gas every month, and probably this year we've spent 7 to 8 billion euros in Russia on energy, this year alone. Last year, more than 20. This is obviously totally unacceptable. So how do we get rid of this, whilst at the same time improving our competitiveness, whilst at the same time fighting climate change? Green technologies. More renewables fast. Last year we deployed 78 gigawatts of new renewables. We're now over 700 gigawatts installed. Next year, this year, it'll be 89 probably. Next year, it'll be even more. So it is going fast in the right direction, but it needs to go even faster. So obviously, the technologies that supply us with this, solar, wind, are extremely important, geothermal. But for this to really be efficient and to move faster to the benefit of all of these three objectives, we need to electrify our societies much more. I will be presenting a plan on how Europe should do that. Your input is very welcome in that aspect, of course. We also need to utilize AI and digitalization much better than we do today. Also here, of course, I count on stakeholders just like yourself for input. We need to be much better connected than we are. Acer has estimated that we save around 33 to 35 billion euros every year on our electricity prices by being interconnected the way we are now. So this means that we would pay even more for our energy than we do if we were just 27 different countries instead of one union. So in a way, we are a success story also in that aspect. But of course, the potential is so much bigger. We have parts of Europe that are really not connected almost at all. And this needs to change. So I will be presenting a grid package in a few months in which we will hopefully be able to present ideas and visions and concrete proposals to how this can be rectified. You probably all noticed that President von der Leyen in her speech recently, State of the Union, mentioned that we want to create European energy highways. That's a way of saying that if we don't speed up on the infrastructure projects that are lacking right now, that everybody can see are bottlenecks, then we will not be able to do what we want to do. So we've identified 8 of them. There are certainly more. The paradigm shift here and what's new is that we are not afraid to do that from Brussels. Usually, I'm a big advocate of bottom-up approaches to transformation. The problem with bottom-up approaches is that sometimes then things doesn't happen. And certainly, very often, it takes too long. So instead of us waiting for countries themselves finding a way to talk to each other, making the right incentives, having the logistics around the politics set out, who decides what, where do the negotiations take place, who are the leader, what is the proposal on the table, all of these things. Instead of doing that, we as a European Union take a bigger responsibility in planning this, in pointing to where's the necessities. And we have a very, very good business case for almost all countries. Sure, sometimes there will be country A that you need to connect to country C, and country B doesn't really get anything out of it. So we need to make incentives for country B, because it's the best for the whole of the Union. But all countries will benefit the better connected we are, because it will bring down fundamentally the energy prices. And it will limit the wasted energy that we unfortunately see today. So Germany alone wastes 4 billion euros every year on curtailment that could be avoided. The blackouts that we see sometimes in Europe, we've had a very serious one recently, but even the ones that are not as serious is a big problem for industry, many places. And the uncertainties that it can happen is a big problem for industry. So this needs to be limited as well. And again, here, to be better connected, to have better grids in combination with AI, in combination with batteries and storage, that matters. So apart from presenting the plans that will also include very concrete proposals on legislation, on how to provide the funding, we will also try and work in new and hopefully more efficient ways. So this is why I put forward the proposal to make tripartite contracts. We can make them on many different areas in Europe. So we'll start out with offshore wind and grids and a few others. But in time, hopefully, this can be a new way of working. So in my own country, Denmark, where we've done this since 1899 on the labor market. And you'd be surprised how bringing stakeholders that sometimes even see each other as adversaries, but they definitely not, even if they see, even in the cases where they see each other as friends, they are negotiating. It's a bit of an arbitrary process often. How do they meet? How do the producers and the consumers meet? Especially since there's also governments and public administrations involved. What happens? But if we have a model for it, like the country that I know best has now also in fighting climate change sphere, it can be done. So in Denmark, what they did was they took the farmers organization, the big nature conservation organization, the unions, and the state. And they made an agreement that I would have never thought would be possible, that included a carbon tax on farming. Imagine that, putting a carbon tax on farming that the farmers agree to. It shows you the power of what can be done if you have all the right stakeholders around the table and you have a government that's willing to also help facilitate. Maybe we can do some of the same on European level. We will certainly try, and I hope that you will be active players in these processes. I'm sorry I cannot stay and discuss with you all day. Your schedule looks extremely interesting. I know that doesn't sound very credible, but I actually mean it. I would love to do that, but I have a busy day as you do as well. But thank you so much for this opportunity to address you this morning. Thank you.